There's a moment that hits you somewhere in your 40s, usually late at night, when the house is quiet and your phone is face down on the table. You're not panicking like you did in your 20s. You're not chasing like you did in your 30s. Instead, there's a heavier, quieter question sitting in your chest. Did I build something solid, or did I just stay busy? If you're someone who cares too much, this question doesn't feel abstract. It feels personal. It feels urgent. It feels like time is suddenly louder than it used to be. Your 40s are not about starting over. They're about reckoning, about integrating who you were with who you're becoming. Psychologically, this decade activates a shift from expansion to evaluation. Neuroscience shows that as we age, our brains become less driven by novelty and more driven by meaning and security. And money, whether we like it or not, becomes one of the mirrors we use to judge whether our lives feel stable or fragile. For people who care too much, money has always been tied to responsibility. In your 40s, that responsibility deepens. One of the first real money milestones in this decade isn't a number in your account. It's the moment money stops being the main source of your anxiety. Not because you're rich, but because you've built enough margin that one problem doesn't trigger 10 others. You don't feel invincible. You feel buffered. That buffer changes your nervous system. Bills don't spike your heart rate. Market swings don't hijack your mood for days. This is when money starts doing what it was always supposed to do: support your life instead of dominating it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people in their 40s look successful on the outside and are quietly suffocating on the inside. High income, low peace, big house, thin margins, impressive lifestyle, fragile foundation. Caring too much can push you into this trap. You take on more because you can. You support more people. You absorb more pressure. And slowly, your financial life becomes the place where you're holding everything together while telling yourself you're fine. A major milestone in your 40s is realizing that wealth without control is just stress in a nicer outfit. Behavioral psychology shows that perceived control matters more than raw numbers when it comes to well-being. This is the decade where reducing obligations can be as powerful as increasing income, where paying something off can feel better than buying something new, where simplicity starts to feel like intelligence, not limitation. Another shift happens around how you view time. In your 20s, time felt endless. In your 30s, it felt negotiable. In your 40s, it feels precious. Money milestones now become deeply intertwined with freedom milestones. Can you step back if you need to? Can you say no without consequences? Can you handle a health issue, a family crisis, or a career pivot without financial freefall? These questions are not dramatic, they're practical. And if you care too much, you've probably been thinking about them longer than you admit. There's also a quieter, more emotional milestone that doesn't show up on spreadsheets. It's when you stop trying to prove your worth through financial achievement. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means the striving becomes cleaner, less reactive, less ego. Neuroscience tells us that chronic stress narrows identity. When stress reduces, identity expands. You remember who you were before survival mode took over. Money becomes a tool for alignment, not validation. Of course, there's a shadow side. People who care too much in their 40s can become overly cautious, afraid to invest, afraid to change, afraid to enjoy. Loss aversion peaks when people feel they have too much to lose. This can turn security into stagnation. You might delay joy, delay rest, delay life itself, telling yourself you'll loosen up later. But later is not guaranteed. The healthiest milestone in this decade is learning to let money protect your life, not postpone it. Your 40s are also when legacy quietly enters the room. Not just inheritance, but example. What are you teaching your kids, your peers, your younger self, about money and self-worth? Are you modeling calm or constant worry, abundance or perpetual scarcity? Caring too much means you want to get this right, not just numerically, but emotionally. You want your financial life to feel honest, integrated, sustainable. There's a powerful moment when you realize that the goal is no longer maximum growth at any cost. It's resilient growth, growth that survives bad years, growth that doesn't require you to sacrifice your health or relationships, growth that still works if life throws something unexpected your way. This is not settling. This is maturity. And here's the part no one says out loud. The biggest money milestone in your 40s is internal. It's when you stop measuring yourself against where you should be and start respecting where you actually are. Comparison loses its grip. Regret softens into responsibility. You stop replaying old decisions and start optimizing the present. That psychological shift alone can feel richer than any raise or bonus if you're behind where you thought you'd be. That doesn't mean you failed. It means your life took a human path, not a spreadsheet one. If you're ahead, that doesn't mean you're done. It means you have a chance to design the next phase with intention instead of urgency. Caring too much doesn't disappear in your 40s, but it can finally mature into wisdom instead of worry. By this decade, money milestones are no longer about impressing anyone. They're about sleeping well, about waking up without dread, about knowing that if life shakes you, you won't shatter. They're about building a life that doesn't need constant financial heroics to survive. So let me leave you with this, quietly, honestly. If the next 10 years of your life were less about accumulation and more about alignment, what would you change first? And what would it feel like to let your money finally support the life you're already living, instead of chasing the one you think you're supposed to have?